Chapter 28. The account of Alexander, the son of Hyrcanus. After that Aristobulus was dead, his brother Alexander was released from his fetters, and being brought out of prison, succeeded to the throne. Now the governor of the city Acche, which is Ptolemy, had rebelled, and had sent messengers to Lythras, the son of Cleopatra, requesting that he would aid him and take him under his protection. But he for a long time refused, fearing a recurrence of the things which he had before suffered from Hyrcanus. But the messenger gave him courage by means of the succors promised by the lord of Tyre, of Zidon, and others. And Lythras marched with 30,000 men, and the report of it was brought to Alexander, who anticipated him at Ptolemy, and attacked it, and the citizens of Ptolemy shut the gate in his face, and endeavored to keep him out. Wherefore Alexander straitened them, and continued to besiege them, until he was informed of the marching of Lythras. Then he retired from before them, Lythras with his troops being at hand. Now there was among the citizens of Ptolemy an old man of acknowledged authority, who persuaded the citizens not to permit Lythras to enter their city, nor to take on themselves obedience to him, since he was of a different religion. He also said to them, "Far more advantageous to you in every way will be submission to Alexander, who is of the same religion, than submission to Lythras." Nor did he cease until they agreed to his sentiments. And they prevented Lythras from entering Ptolemy, refusing submission to him. And Lythras was perplexed in his affairs, nor did he take counsel what was best for him to do. And this was told to the king of Zidon, and he sent messengers to him, that they should help him in the war against Alexander, that either they might defeat him, or take some of his cities, and thus punish him. And thus Lythras might return to his own country, after performing deeds which might render him formidable, which in truth would be more to his advantage than to return without having effected his purpose. And this was told to Alexander, who sent to Lythras an honorable emissary with very valuable present, and proposed to him not to aid the king of Sidon. And Lythras accepted Alexander's present, agreeing to his request. But Alexander marched to Sidon, and fought against its sovereign, and God made him victorious over him, and he slew great numbers of his men, and having put him to flight, gained possession of his country. After this Alexander sent messengers to Cleopatra, and that she should come with an army against Lythras her son, and that he would also march with an army against him, and would deliver him a prisoner to her. Which, when Lythras found out, he departed into the mountain of Galilee, and slew great numbers of the inhabitants, and carried away 10,000 captives. A great number of his own men were also slain. From thence he marched even till he came to Jordan, and there encamped, and his men and horses might rest themselves, and afterward he might march to Jerusalem to fight with Alexander. This was told to Alexander, who went against him with 50,000 men, of whom 6,000 had shields of brass, and it is said that each of those could resist any number of men. And he attacked him at the Jordan, and engaged with him there, but did not obtain the victory, because he trusted in his men, and had placed his confidence in their number. But with Lythras there were men very skillful in battle, and in drawing up armies, who advised him to divide his forces into two parts, so that one might be with Lythras and his company prepared for the battle, and the other part might be with another captain of their company. And he fought even until noon, and great numbers of his men were slain. And his friends advanced with the remainder of the army which was with him, whose strength was yet entire, against Alexander and his men, who were by this time overcome with fatigue. And he dealt with them as he pleased, and slew great multitudes of them. And Alexander and his men who had remained with him fled into the city of the holy house. Lythras also departed toward evening into a certain town near at hand, and by chance some Jewish women with their children met him. And he commanded some of the children to be killed, and their flesh to be dressed, pretending that there were some in his army who fled on human flesh, designing by these acts to strike the inhabitants of the country with the dread of his troops. After this came Cleopatra, whom Alexander met, and told her what Lythras had done to his army, and appointed to go with her in search of him. Which being told to Lythras, he fled to a place where was a station of his ships, going on board which he returned to Cyprus, and Cleopatra returned into Egypt. But at the end of the year, Alexander marched against Gaza, because its chief had revolted from him and had sent to a certain king of the Arabians named Hartas to assist him, who consented to do so and marched towards Gaza. This was told to Alexander, who, leaving some of his men before Gaza, marched against Hartas and engaged him and put him to flight. Then he returned to Gaza, and laying sore upon it, took it at the end of a year. But the cause of his taking it was the brother of that chief, who coming suddenly on him, slew him. When the citizens sought to kill him, they collected his friends and went to the gate of the city and addressed Alexander, begging on that, giving security for his life and of his friends, he would enter the city. Which Alexander promising, entered Gaza and slew its inhabitants, and overthrew the temple which was in it, and burned their gilded idol which was in the temple. After which he departed to the city of the holy house, and there celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles. And when the feast was past, he made himself ready against Hartas, whom he encountered, and slew a great number of his men. And Hartas's affairs were much straitened and crippled, and he feared his own utter extinction. Wherefore, suing to Alexander for his life, he yielded him obedience and paid him tributes. And Alexander departed from him and marched against Hamath and Tyre and took them. And having received tribute from the inhabitants, he returned into the city of the holy house.